I lived according to my beliefs no matter how difficult it was. I lived according to my conscience. I never took action unless I believed it was right. I never respected anyone regardless of who they were, unless they had reached a level worthy of respect.
I remember one time, Kook-Jon came to me. You know what he said to me? It was a couple of years back, and this was after father had crowned me and all that kind of thing. My brother came to me, and this is what he said to me. He said, I know how much father loves me by seeing how much he loves you. Here I am, father just gave his whole inheritance to me, and his whole kingdom, crowned me 3 times, and he comes to me and he says, I feel father's love when I see him love you. I never receive that love, but when I see him love you I feel his love for me. That blew my mind. But I realized, just like a true elder brother surrenders to God's ownership and can say to his younger brother who has received all this blessing that he has not merited but it has been given to him, and he can say to that younger, not you little. I want to whoop you tomorrow, but he can say to him, I feel father's love for me when I see how much he loves you.
안녕하세요, 식구 여러분. 정말 제가 하버드 졸업했지만 국민 학생 수준으로만 한국말로 할 수 있으니까 정말 부모님 앞에서 여러분 간부님 앞에서 정말 부끄럽습니다. 죄송하고요. 오늘 정말 우리 형진 동생 세계 회장, 우리 그리고 한국 회장, 한국협 회장 취임식을 정말 기뻐합니다. 나는 동생, 중강 동생이고 큰 형님들도 많이 있고 힘들 때 많이 있었지. 모든 형님께서 맞은 적도 있죠. 제가 살면서 상당히 많이 맞았어요. 그래도 아무 만큼 힘들도 저는 내 믿음대로 살았어요. 양심대로. 나는 절대 내가 옳다고 생각하지 않으면 행동 안 합니다. 그리고 나는 절대 사람은 존경하지 않으면 존경 비준은 못합니다. 그렇게 솔직하게 살아왔고 지금도 그렇게 솔직하게 살고 있습니다. 우리 동생은 존경스럽고 사랑스러우니까 저는 충분하게 저 동생은 우리 세계 회장으로서 모실 수 있습니다. 그렇지 않으면 절대 말 듣지 않죠. 죽어도 안 해요. 여러분 다 아시죠? 저는 싸움할 줄 잘 압니다. 한 번에 결심하고 믿으면 끝까지 합니다. 내 양심대로 살 수밖에 없어요. 특히 우리 영진 동생은 그 동생보다 더 완벽한 사람이 있을 수 없습니다. 너무 똑똑하고 모든 것은 잘하고 모든 형제 사랑하고 정말 사랑했어요. 그렇지만 우리 동생 사고 나기 전에 저한테 부탁했어요. 정말 형진 동생 지켜주고 정말 되게 만들라고 도와주려고. 그 약속 지킬 수 있으니까 정말 감사해요. 정말 여러분한테, 부모님한테 정말 고맙습니다. 사람은 살면 양심대로 살아야지 돼요. 형제들 벌써 앞에 가는데 약속한 거 다 지켜야지. 그거 사람이지요. 약속 지킬 수 없으면 사람 아닙니다. 나는 죽을 때까지 내가 만든 약속들을 다 지키겠습니다. 그렇지만 지금은 일은 끝나는 거 아니에요. 일은 지금 시작입니다. 여러분, 지금은 우리 할 일은 간단해요. 위에서 사십시다. 옆에 있는 분 위에서 살고, 가족 안에 서로 사랑하고, 남편 위해서 살고, 색시 위해서 살고, 아들, 딸 위해서 살고. 우리는 위에서 살 수 있으면 하나님한테 행복을 돌려줄 수 있습니다. 정말 고맙습니다.
What exactly is our vision for the ideal world? And this is a question we would like to address and look at today. The title of today's lecture is The Freedom Society. It is a vision for building God's ideal world. And it has been the desire of all men ever since the fall to return to the Garden of Eden, to return to a state where we can be blessed by God. And so the question is, how can we understand today's societies in the context of the Garden of Eden? We know that in the Garden of Eden, the archangel was created to serve Adam and Eve. And as you mentioned, who is supposed to serve us in a democracy? The government, right? It is the process by which the government goes from being servant to master. But you know, as we study the principle, and we study the coming of Jesus Christ as the Messiah, we're taught and we understand that God's purpose for Christ's coming was not so that he could be crucified. God's desire was that Christ be received and become the King of glory. But it is because the people of that time were not able to receive Christ that Christ had to go the way of the cross. And because he had gone the way of the cross, Satan had taken his body, his flesh and his blood, and killed him. But his spirit was taken by God. And subsequently, as a result, although the body on this earth suffered under tyranny and slavery, through Christ, man now had the freedom to inherit spiritual salvation and to go to God. And our understanding of God's will and an understanding of God's ideal for the ideal kingdom of heaven and earth, which will enable us to teach the generations that follow. What is God's will for human society?
리조트 개발로 성장의 기회가 많이 생길 것이라며 신사업에 대한 도전을 시사했습니다.
포브스와 프랑스 TV, 매경 TV, 환경 TV, 월간 CEO 등 국내외 언론은 우리 교회의 활동을 있는 그대로 알리고 혁신을 통한 그룹의 비약적인 성장.
And so this is the point. When you understand this teaching and how Father has led us throughout his life in teaching the principle, and how at the end he makes this revelation, now this revelation and this teaching brings Christianity and Unification Church into one. Reverend Sun Myung Moon came from the God of Night. So what does that mean? God is Jesus and Jesus is Reverend Sun Myung Moon. The conclusion of Father's teaching is that Reverend Sun Myung Moon is Jesus. That's the whole point. When Father talked about the Chanseongyang and the words he said, he says, in that book you should not touch one word because that one word may save somebody. The point is when Father talks, he talks at so many different levels. He talks from the level of a kindergartner to the level of a PhD, and everywhere in between. And then even above a PhD. If he did it in 1970, said something, it was a foundational level for something he's going to say in 2017. Every word that Father speaks is absolutely the most precious word in the world. But that word has many levels of understanding, and if you just read it on the surface, you can be misunderstanding what we're talking about for human beings between men and women. Men are supposed to become the body of God.
Right.
And the women are supposed to become the bride of Christ.
Right.
So God is the source, the origin, He's the brain, He's the center. And we, as our responsibility, we're supposed to fit in God's body, whether we're a muscle or an organ or part of the central nervous system. We're supposed to fit into a very specific role in God's body. And our object partner, once we inherit that, is God's bride. Because all the women in the world, when we become God's body, when the men become God's body, are actually married to God. So the purpose of creation is that the men are supposed to fulfill God's substantial body on earth. And the women are supposed to fulfill God's substantial bride on earth. That's why the Messiah comes to be the bride of every single woman on earth. You're all supposed to marry God. That's the purpose of creation. Jesus said, I am the way and the path and the only way to God in heaven, because He is God. That's the fundamental difference between the Christ head and everybody else. The Christ head is God. That's why the mission in which the Christ head on earth is fundamentally different than all of us who are to be part of God's body and God's bride. There is only one Christ head to whom all the women are married. This is what God is teaching us. He is teaching us that we must choose to love Him and love what He gives us. And when we love the things that God gives us and we love the kingship that He gives us, then that love creates the kingdom of heaven on earth.